Knock, knock.
Who's there?
Interrupting podcast presenter.
Interrupting.
Cranked and Ranked is back.
Hey! I thought I recognized you.
That wasn't executed very well, but you get my drift. Well, welcome back everybody to Cranked and Ranked. It's been several weeks, I think, since the last episode of Cranked and Ranked, and as Eddie and I were discussing right before we started, we're considering this season 3.
Season 3.
Which essentially means, I don't know. I guess it would mean that this is when we introduce a new character. No,
ladies and gentlemen, Sparxx. Oh, girls,
I'm trying to think about television shows and what season 3s are usually all about. Usually, if you're on to season 3, then you're a pretty successful show if you've made it that far. But to be fair, we're the ones putting this out and it's free. So, but yeah, season 3, because this is the 3rd year we've been doing this. We started in 2020, and then we did all of 2021, and now this is the first episode of the year 2022, which that sounds like the future. 2022. I guess 2021 does too, but for some reason 2022 just sounds like you would see that at the beginning of a sci-fi movie in like that old computer font.
Yeah.
2022.
Nuclear war has ravaged the earth.
Yeah. So that's where we are. We're in the 3rd series where the nuclear fallout has already happened, and now we're trying to rebuild.
Aren't we now like 7 years away from when Skynet is supposed to become self-aware?
Something like that. I don't remember the date of that, but yeah, I mean, we've already passed up, hoverboards and shit. So I mean, before we know it, we're gonna pass up everything in all of those movies, and they're gonna have to start making sci-fi movies where they're set like millions of years in the future, just to make sure this takes place in 8029. I guess that's not millions of years, but it gives you enough time. Anyway, can you imagine the year 8000? We'll be dead at that point. Global warming and whatnot. We'll be dead, but everyone else will probably be too. So hey, welcome everyone. Cranked and Ranked is this podcast. If you're new, this is a podcast where me and my buddy, we rank rock and metal and sometimes other music related things, band discographies and whatnot. And today we're back with another band discography, and it's going to be a fun one. But first off, I am your podcast presenter, as I said earlier, Steven, aka Old Head. With me as always, Eddie Sparxx.
I am on a podcast. I was trying to do something there.
I felt where you were going. It was like the execution was like you started off strong and then the dismount was kind of poor.
It's hard to fuck up the I am part, but yeah. Constipated.
So if you heard that and you know that song, or if you know how to read, then you know that we're doing Stone Temple Pilots today. And for those of you who are watching at home, check out my cool hat. It's an Old Head hat, which is for sale on my shop. Which now, like, if you're watching this, and I think it only really shows up like if you're on a computer or like a phone or something. But if you look below the video, you should see shit that you can buy, not just Old Head shit, but Cranked and Ranked while I'm doing this. Like, I'm looking at it and we look like this, but I know on the show we look like this. Cranked and Ranked shit that you can buy. And
I look like this too.
Yeah, it's a good look. So yeah, so we got merch, everybody. So if you're confused, you can, I don't remember what it's called. It's oldhead.myspreadshop.com, and there's a UK version now, which is old-head.myspreadshop.co.uk. Which is interesting because I learned that like certain types of things are slightly different in the UK. Who would have thought, right? No, but like the store wise, it's like on the American store, I decided that I wanted to make the Cranked and Rank shirts available kind of in our scheme. So one is in black and one is in like a fuchsia. You can get like a pinkish t-shirt. But in England, they're like, no, men don't wear fuchsia. So if you're going to the UK store, you can only get black, unfortunately.
Dang.
I mean, there were other colors to choose from, but I looked at the image with those colors and I went, nah, this is lame. I'm not going to be one of those stores. It's like, here, have a teal shirt with us on it. I'm like, no. If you're a fan of ours, you're a fan of black and fuchsia. So, or just, pinkish in general. Anyway, I'm sorry. That's just rambling. It's been a while. So, I mean, I feel like I have a lot of catching up to do in general. But that was the most important thing, making money. Let's everybody buy some merch.
Out there hustling, getting the bag.
Yeah. I mean, we've sold some stuff. I have to admit, it's a little bit, it hurts my feelings a little bit. Most of what people want to buy is Cranked and Rank stuff. And not nobody really wants to buy a shirt with just me on it.
Oh, I will. I'll do it. I'll rep the Old Head Nation.
I have one, but I felt weird wearing it. Like wearing me on me. That would, now I'm just, the hat just says Old Head. So, but you can also get a hat that actually has me on it.
It ain't gay if it's you on you. That's an American Dad quote.
Oh, is it? It's also very true. Like you never nobody ever really talks about how obsessed men are with their own junk, but it's essentially you're obsessed with a penis.
One of the funniest things I've heard recently was a guy say, if you think about it, one of the manliest things you can do is just fuck another guy.
I mean, there's some truth in that, really.
Yeah.
By the way, if you're new to this podcast, we do have tangents. We do. I would say we stay on course 80% of the time, but 20% of the time, all bets are off, and we may go into territories that make some people uncomfortable. I don't really know.
But that's just the seasoning on the Cranked and Ranked chicken.
That's true. Other people will just give you some bland chicken. We throw some salt and
11 herbs and spices.
Anyway, so today's episode, first back for 2022, is Stone Temple Pilots, which we've previously done what people refer to as the big four, quote unquote, of grunge. And Stone Temple Pilots would be, a lot of people, I think they term them second wave grunge. Which makes some sense if you're really talking about the bands that started in the 80s. Then I guess this would be second wave grunge. But in hindsight, with the amount of time that it's been between now and back then, they seem like they're just an original grunge band because they were back in when everything was happening. Their album came out. Their first album anyway. So we're doing their 8 full-length studio albums because we wanted to just get this as a one and done episode. And so we're not doing any EPs, which means we're not ranking the EP they did with Chester Bennington, but we can talk about that if you would like at some point.
Main thing I'd say, it's cool. And Chester could sing, and it's got some cool stuff on it. But yeah.
I had never heard that EP before this last week. And I'm not going to make any friends here probably, but Chester Bennington Chester Bennington is a little bit of an overrated singer. I realize he's dead, but I think I said it to Eddie in a text message. Being dead doesn't earn you any extra credit. So I'm sad for his family and his fans. and
Hmm.
clearly he was talented. But out of the three singers that Stone Temple Pilots have had, he's the least good, and his
Hmm.
voice just isn't good enough for their kind of music. And so the whole thing just sort of seemed meh to me. So that's my thoughts on that. Whatever that one's called. And plus it's not legit. I wouldn't call it legit Stone Temple Pilots because it's billed as Stone Temple Pilots with Chester Bennington. So it's
Yeah.
almost like a collab and not necessarily like was he the full-on lead singer at that point? Like he got hired on to the band?
I'm not sure because I think it was kind of up in the air as to whether or not Scott was still gonna be with the band or not because
Oh,
they
because he was
did
doing solo
return.
shit. Yeah.
No, well, they did return with the 2010 self-titled album, but
Which we'll get to, yeah.
yeah, but it was, it's such a shame what happened with Scott. But
Yeah.
I think it was a lot of stuff was up in the air, and I think the substance side of things likely
It
had a lot to do with it.
yeah, it's a lot of like it's an unfortunate death. We'll go ahead and just knock this out right now, talking about Scott Weiland, because he died several years ago from a drug overdose, but he had so many problems with drugs.
Yeah.
It was kind of like, you know, when Betty White died, it was really upsetting, but at the same time, it's like, bitch was 99. You know, and so with Scott Weiland, it's like the dude had his struggles, so it seemed like it was only a matter of time,
It was
before
kind of
something
like
happened.
yeah, in contrast to like because I was in college when Scott and Chris Cornell died, and I remember
Yeah,
exactly where I was both of those days.
yeah,
And it was quite early in college with Scott because it was 2015. And I remember sitting there finding out about it and being bummed, but I there was that element of this sucks, but I'm not surprised.
yeah, yeah.
Like
Unfortunately,
whereas when Chris Cornell died, on the other hand, I knew that at some point he'd had an issue with alcohol, but he always seemed like he kind of had it together.
yeah.
Like, and when I found
He
out,
was the ultimate rock star to me.
yeah, I
Um,
remember my friend Will walking down the corridor, and he walked up to me. He was in shock, like because
mhm,
he was a big fan, and he went, "Whoa, Chris Cornell is dead." And I was like, "Wait, what?"
yeah.
Like one it was one of those where it's like, was it some kind of tragic accident? It was like, uh, it's a little sadder. It's like, oh
Yeah.
man,
And we
yeah,
and honestly, and this we discussed this a lot. We actually did, for those of you who haven't listened to it yet, we ranked the Soundgarden discography, and we talked a lot about Chris Cornell. Um, but you know what? But let's leave that, because we got to give Scott Weiland his due on this
yeah,
episode. So yeah, so the way we do that is that we rank their full length albums, starting from uh, least good or worst all the way to what we consider their best. And
yeah.
so let's just fucking get started as usual. Oh wait, no, we normally talk about where this band came into our lives. All right, sorry, I'll be on track. This is gonna be a long ass episode because I can't stay on track. Um, it's not a very interesting story. I was a young teenager when their first album came out, and so I was already into Nirvana and Soundgarden and Pearl Jam and all of that shit, and metal and all sorts of stuff. And so their album came out, and I honestly wasn't really that interested, just because of just based off of Sex Type Thing. I was
Hmm.
like, okay, we'll get to that when we talk about that album. But eventually, a good friend of mine dubbed me a copy on cassette tape and said, "You really should check out the whole album." And I was just like, "Wow, yeah, this is really good." And then I was a fan from that point on. So it's pretty simple story. What about you?
It's funny actually. This is one of the San Andreas bands that,
Yeah.
yeah, GTA San Andreas, um, is the main reason. But I wanted to talk about this because I think you'd have been 14 in 1992, right?
Yep. Turned 14 in March of 1992.
This album came to us at exactly the same age.
Oh wow.
I was 14 when I first got into Stone Temple Pilots as well.
Nice. That's a good, I mean, that's a good age. That's why there's so many bands from that time period that I still love today, because I almost feel like you're old enough to know what you like, but you're not too old to start being cynical and start to give into trends and shit. And so
Exactly.
when I was 13, 14, 15 years old, I was just liking what I liked. There was no, you know, I've said this a lot. There was no, you can't listen to Guns N' Roses because you're into Metallica. You can't listen,
Yeah.
you know, it's like there were all these lines that apparently were drawn with older people, but with me and my friends, it was just like, yeah, I'm wearing a Pearl Jam shirt while listening to Obituary. That's how it works.
Yeah.
That's a good age. And that was, you know, which let's go ahead and say it. That is now, well, not for you, but 14 years old. That is now 30 years ago, 1992. All of these amazing albums that came out in 1992 are now 30 years old, which makes me, in March, I will be 44 years old. That's all right, I guess. You know, it doesn't matter. I'm 44, but I still can take solace in the fact that people will still comment on my videos like, you don't look old. You can't name yourself old head if you're not old.
Oh,
All
dude.
right. Anyway, so yeah, let's jump right into it. Number 8. What's your number 8?
Let's do this.
Stone Temple Pilots album.
See, here's the thing, and I want to make this very clear. I don't know if this is a hot take or not.
Okay.
Because people seem to have. This is one of those bands where anyone's list could be different. Like, I've seen lists where people put core at the top, and ones where people put core way down at the bottom.
Yeah.
Right? Right. Here's the thing. I haven't seen something I can truly form a general consensus on, apart from the group of people that think they're a Pearl Jam knockoff, right? They're the only ones that seem to be set in any kind of this sucks and this is why kind of mindset, you know.
Yeah.
Everybody else is kind of like, hey, you like what you like. These guys are assholes.
also, that's an opinion that everybody grew out of in 1994. Like a lot of us had that opinion in 1992. But by 1994, everyone was like, okay, they're their own band. So that if anyone's still clinging on to that opinion, then you just don't know what you're talking about, and you sound like a fool. So go ahead.
Pow. So my number 8 is Tiny Music, Songs from the Vatican Gift Shop.
Putting it this low might be a hot take, but I'm willing to hear you out.
Here's the thing. I'll do my track by track, and then I'll kind of explain at the end. Okay. So you got Press Play, which is this cool lounge funk kind of intro, and it kind of picks up where we left off with like 12 Gracious Melodies at the end of Purple. But then you get Pop Love Suicide. It's like a groovy kind of alt rock track. It feels like they've adopted a slight 70s-ish aesthetic paired with their mid-90s alternative stuff. So it's kind of this like old school glam rock meets alternative rock in the mid-90s. Then you get Tumble in the Rough. Like, by this point, they'd completely shed their grunge thing. This is a very dry 90s alternative record.
Yeah.
And while I respect their evolution, like, I respect the thought of not doing the same shit twice.
Yeah.
I do miss the heavier edge of their earlier stuff on this record. There is a cool descending guitar riff in the chorus, though. Big Bang Baby is this stomping, fun, clap along kind of track. Lady Picture Show is a total mid-90s ballad. And So I Know. Now, I will say that guitar, that clean guitar tone, that sounds smooth as all hell. That's ear candy right there.
Yeah.
Tripping on a Hole in a Paper Heart. This was the big hit for the album, but it's the only one I think of when this album comes up,
Yeah.
because there's, compared to the previous two, there's not a whole lot on this record I find very memorable at all. uh Art School Girl is like mellow. It does have some heavy parts in it, but it's marginally heavier. Adhesive is a big kind of vibey one. Ride the Cliche, I will say that the riff in that is pretty sick. um Daisy is this chill little instrumental, and Seven Cage of Tigers is a groovy alt rock kind of closer. It's one of those albums that I thought was going to be a grower for me, but
Mm-hmm.
it still falls a bit short of what I feel about my top picks. Like, seeing as some of the album has, well, most of the album has such a middle of the road, inoffensive either way kind of feel.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it doesn't go very hard in any one direction. It's just kind of like, it's a bit bland to my ears. Like, above all else, this album does have cool moments, but I don't feel like the songs on it have enough going for them, aside from maybe like one or two.
Mm-hmm.
Like, cause really the only choruses I can think of on this album is Pop Love Suicide and Dropping on a Hole in a Paper Heart. And I've heard this album at least once a year for
Yeah.
the last 9 years, and I've just never really taken to it the way I do the others.
Yeah. So I've got a theory on why that is. I'm going to save that for when I talk about this album, because to me, there's a reason why a lot of the songs aren't very memorable. But I'll get to that, because I agree with a lot of what you said, but it's not my number 8. Just to quickly move on, I'm going to apologize in advance for starting the first episode of 2022 off on a sour note. But my number 8 is the most recent album from 2020, and it's called Perdida. This is a piece of shit. Like,
wow, okay.
Like, I'm sorry. Like, I knew nothing about this album. I had never heard it. And the first song has some of the most generic, bland, boring, rehashed nonsense songwriting, to the point where, like, I start writing notes as I'm listening to the album, and it just says first song, no. That's all it says. So they decided to do a mellow acoustic album, and they have a new, full-time vocalist whose name is Jeff Gutt, who is a perfectly good singer. He was in like a new metal band, I think, or something prior to this. Maybe they weren't new metal, but they were, they were an heavy alt band. Yeah, I don't remember what they were called, but he was in a band like that. Anyway, so they did this whole mellow acoustic album, and in the description that I saw, the one thing they made sure that everybody knew was that this was recorded on vintage instruments, which, if you know anything about making good music, the instruments you play it on don't fucking matter, especially this day and age in the studio. And then on top of that, if you were mixing vintage instruments with vintage ideas that have already been done to death numerous times before by hundreds of other artists, then you literally have a bland, generic, middle of the road, middle-aged, self-indulgent musician album, which is what this is. It's literally old dudes who are like, we know about instruments and recording processes and stuff. We've kind of forgotten how to write interesting songs, but that doesn't matter. And so that's what this album is. It is a painfully boring album. And I'm all about bands doing something different. But the one thing I'm going to have to say is the problem with Stone Temple Pilots, because I would consider myself a fan. Otherwise, I wouldn't care. But when they're a band that if they push themselves to do something that isn't a natural progression, it always comes up feeling phoned in and fake and heavy-handed. And that's what this album is. It's like, it's just, I will never listen to this album again. Like I barely got through it one time. And it's just it's so boring. It's just uninspired. And but the one thing that you can say is that those dudes, Dean DeLeo, Robert DeLeo, what's the drummer's name? Eric something?
Eric Kretz.
Eric Kretz. Really fucking talented dudes. I mean, a great band. No matter what singer is in the band, those guys playing together sounds really good. And they always work with good producers. The sound's always good. They're dudes that know what the fuck they're doing. But something has happened songwriting wise where there's a spark that's just not there anymore. And I can't fault them for it. Like, why would you want to just stop doing things? If you like making music, but nothing's really like, nothing new and interesting is really coming out of you. I understand you don't want to stop. And there are fans that are lifelong Stone Temple Pilots fans, and they probably like this album because, you know, if you're a big fan of a band, even their missteps become things that, you know, you enjoy for whatever reason. But from my point of view, where I'm somebody who I'm a fan, but I'm not like a diehard fan, albums like this just make me really weary of them continuing doing anything. So that's my number 8. Perdita from 2020.
That was brutal.
That's normally not me, but I had such a visceral reaction. I was almost angry listening to this album. God damn it, why do they have to do this? And so that's why I was like, you know what, I'm just going to be honest about it, and that's all I have to say about that.
I think also I'm gonna hold on to it for now, but I think I have a theory as to why you don't like that one. I like it a little bit more, but I think I have an idea of why, because there was a particularly it was I don't know how to describe it other than Lynyrd Skynyrd backing singers at one point, like sort of thing.
You know, honestly, like that doesn't bother me that much. Like
but there is certain things that seep in every now and again, and I was thinking, yeah, he's not gonna like this.
not a fan of the Southern rock, but you know, I don't know. Here and there are songs that I like, but overall, that's not my thing.
Right on. So for my number 7, I have got 2001's Shangri-La-Dee-Da.
Wow. Our lists are going to be different. This is cool.
Now, my main reason for having this one here is because it feels like a bit of a step backwards, but not a full step backwards. So it's kind of like if Megadeth, when they went back from Risk to World Needs a Hero, they still had another disco song on there, even though the rest of it was thrash.
Yeah.
And so where I'm driving at here is like the album does itself a real disservice by opening up with Dumb Love, because the thing is, yeah, coming off of the heels of number 4, where they went back to the hard rock thing on the heels of Tiny Music, this song could have been up there as one of the heaviest on number 4, were it on number 4.
Yeah.
But it opens this album, which the heaviness peaks at track 1, and it just gets mellower and mellower as the album goes. And the problem with that is, if you come here looking for a rocking kind of album from them, you're gonna get an EP's worth of material out of it, because that riff opening up like,
yeah,
filthy, like way to open the album. But then you get Days of the Week, which is like, a catchy one, very radio friendly, kind of almost pop punkish early 2000s alt rock song. Then you get Coma, which is like, imagine like post grunge, but with like a groove metal chorus in there with a little bit of an immigrant song thing happening with I wrote Scoot Wayland in my notes.
That's his younger brother, Scoot Wayland.
Scooter, get in here and do the vocals. But yeah, after this point though, it becomes another thing of it jumps back to where I feel Tiny Music kind of fell for me. Because you get Hollywood Bitch is this kind of alt rock song, wonderful kind of.
I hate song titles like that with a passion. Hollywood Bitch.
Yeah.
It's just so, especially in this millennium. If you're writing a song called The Hollywood Bitch, then you're okay, come on.
Here's the thing, right? Like if Guns N' Roses or like LA Guns wrote a song called Hollywood Bitch, I bet it would fucking rule. But the thing is, when you title it something like Hollywood Bitch, and then it sounds like, you know, early 2000s post-grunge, it just doesn't work.
Yeah.
You get Wonderful, which is this kind of psychedelic-ish ballad. I will say, if you're looking for some like kind of vibey stuff, I will say they do deliver on here. Mm-hmm. Like Black Again is another vibey psychedelic one, and then Hello It's Late is another vibey one. But it all kind of becomes a vibe. Like it starts like a songs album, and I feel a little bit lied to, you know?
Yeah.
You get Too Cool Queenie is this vibey rocker. Like the heaviness is really only present in the first few songs. Regeneration, slow alt groover. Bipolar Bear is a
I mean, they should lose a point for that fucking title too.
Yeah.
How many times? I mean, it's like I almost feel like thousands of other songwriters had written that title down. Bipolar Bear. That's fun. No, it's not, and they scratched it out.
These fuckers had the balls to throw it out there. But it's still kind of, it's one of those song titles where you're like, that. It's kind of like the sort of thing that you would see a kid come up with and be like, cool song title.
Yeah.
Just did a 12-year-old Dave.
Yeah, if that song title was on Silverchair's first album, then I'd be okay with that, because they were young teenagers, and they probably thought that's kind of funny. Bipolar Bear, throw it on there. These are fucking grown ass men. No excuse.
5 albums in at this stage too. It's like Transmissions from a Lonely Room is a bit more rocking. It's still in that kind of psych vibe though.
Yeah.
A Song for Sleeping. That's a very early 2000s beat. Like there's a little bit of a like kind of 2000s R&B kind of thing going on in there, in the rhythm to it. And I'm thinking, how long is it before Fergie turns up and starts like
they should have named that whole last album Songs for Sleeping.
Yeah. Oh man. Like Long Way Home is this slow groovy closer, and I feel like this album it's slightly heavier than Tiny Music. Aside from the opener, they kind of gone. They did take another step backwards, in my opinion. It didn't really feel like an evolution. It felt like a regression, if anything. And like I said, I honestly think they shot themselves in the foot opening so heavily, because you get past track 3 and it's a lie.
Yeah.
But yeah, Dumb Love is awesome. Days of the Week is catchy, and Coma has some cool stuff in it.
I think
about it though.
If I remember right, I think this was the album where they claimed that they had a double album's worth of material, but the record label made them just put out one album. And I'm all like, I wonder what, maybe there were other heavy songs, and the ones they felt were the strongest just happened to be heavily on the more of their psychedelic groovy side of things. I mean, I don't know. I don't disagree with really anything you've said, but that's not my number 7. For my number 7, we're just going to totally get Jeff Gutt the fuck out of here, because my number 7 is the self-titled Stone Temple Pilots album from 2018. The first with Jeff Gutt on. I would think about changing that name. I'm just kidding. It's great. I'm sure he's nice. Yeah. So I think when I did my notes for this one in my ranking, this was the second time I had heard this album, and I had the same thought that I had the first time, which is I don't really like the fact that it seems like he's trying to sound similar to Scott Weiland at times. It sounds a little bit forced. It's kind of like Scott Weiland, only less interesting. And he's a perfectly capable vocalist. Like I can't fault him for that. But vocals aside, like I said before, the other 3 dudes are still a really great band. Like they just sound really good playing together. My biggest problem with this album is that there are a lot of great parts, but not really a lot of great complete songs. It'll be a good verse followed up by an underwhelming chorus, or vice versa, or just a song that's just utterly forgettable to begin with. I would say it's a respectable return and a respectable introduction of a new vocalist, but it's not anywhere good enough for me to be fully invested in this version of Stone Temple Pilots. Like I don't care now. I'm just like, yeah. And after Perdita, I'm just totally off. They're gonna have to come back with something that just completely blows me away to bring me back, because I really do think for the most part a good part of this album is pretty forgettable. And once Tiny Music happened, they always tried too much to flirt with this let's remind everybody that we also really like the Beatles kind of thing, which so many bands do that. And that's the thing that's like annoying. I think that is the number one reason why so many people will talk shit about the Beatles. It has nothing to do with the Beatles. It has to do with pretentious ass musicians who, when they reach a point when they're trying to prove themselves, they all become Beatlesque, and that's lame. But it's not a lame album, honestly. Perdita is the only one that I would fully say I will never listen to again. If this one came on, it's fine. But we're now comparing a fine Stone Temple Pilots album to, once we get to my number 1, an album that I would refer to as a perfect album. So, it's a big gap there. So that's my number 7, the second self-titled album they did, funny enough. But this one's from 2018.
Cool. So my number 6, now I want to state here, right? My number 6 and number 5 are on exactly the same wavelength. I like both completely equally, and if it wasn't for the fact there's something that puts one above the other from a totally non-musical aspect, there is just one has a bit of an uplifting vibe and one makes me kind of sad. So slap bang, pretty much right here I have both of the self-titled albums,
but one has to be number 6.
One has to be number 6, and my number 6 is the 2010 Stone Temple Pilots album.
Which I'll just hand it over to you. Boom.
Yep. So this is the one with the little the peace sign
from one. From one self-titled to another self-titled. Although I think, isn't this the one right before it? Like they did 2 self-titles in a row. Like boom.
Yeah. Which is one of the cheekiest things I've ever seen a band do on this show. Because I was so sure I was going to screw up and I was going to have all of the notes for one of them and it was going to be the wrong album. So, Stone Temple Pilots 2010. The reason I put this one lower is because it makes me sad that things didn't work out in the end for Scott.
Yeah,
that
yeah.
he lost his battle with addiction, and that sucks. I Before we did the listening to this episode for this episode, I had never listened to this album.
Okay.
So I went into this one and their two most recent records with a completely open mind, and I enjoyed all three.
I mean, I mean,
But
if it makes you feel any better, he was kicked out of the band before he died, so it's not like dying is what ended his reign with Stone Temple Pilots. They had it with his shit, and they got rid of him.
I'm just basically I'm putting it out there that both self-titleds, they're on an equal playing field
Okay,
in my
okay,
opinion.
gotcha.
But yeah, this one has a sad aura that it was Scott's last.
Yeah,
So between the lines is this like cool rocker with a very Nirvana "Stay Away" part in it.
it's
I
it's
don't know if
clearly
you,
it's clearly an homage to Stay Away because he does the go
yeah,
away, like he does that part.
yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. Take a load off. This one harkens back to kind of the Purple era with like a slightly jangly core thing going on in there too, like a core type thing. Little joke there for you.
I gotcha.
You get Huckleberry Crumble, like that has a groovy ass riff in it. Love the riff. Hickory Dichotomy, upbeat plodding rocker. Dare If You Dare, kind of ballady, dreamy rock track. Cinnamon. Now Scott sounds kind of British on this track at points.
Yeah,
There is a slight British invasion vibe to him in this one. Hazy Days. Holy shit! I thought that was Tom Morello. Like for a minute, there's something to the way it's played. This is some very Rage-esque riffing in this song. Bagman, plodding alt rocker. Peacoat, another plodding alt rocker. That's the thing. There's a lot of times in this discography where I'll go something, another something, because every now and again they would just like group tracks together. But Fast as I Can is reminiscent of up tempo mid 90s Soundgarden a little bit. First Kiss on Mars, mellow kind of poppy rock track. Maver, nice mellow track about a four. This is the thing with this album. It's like an inverted Shangri-La-Di-Da, where
Mhm.
most of it is pretty rocking, and then at the end it's kind of like the cool down from a workout, where the last few bits are a little more easygoing. About a full, yeah, quite a nice. It's a nice return to form, but to me it's just kind of like what could have been if things didn't pan out the way they unfortunately did.
Yeah. Um, yeah. I'm going to continue with you on what words am I saying? My number
We
6
need
is
to put
also
new batteries in Steven.
my number 6 is also the 2010 Stone Temple Pilots album, which means that we're literally going to talk about self-titled albums 4 in a row. Get them all right here. Yeah, it's my number 6, and I agree with a lot of what you said. I like this album. It's got a good energy to it, but I think my biggest problem with this is the fact that overall it's a little bit more of the same. Like they got to a point where they had these two sort of, levels of Stone Temple Pilots. One is the heavier stuff, and the other is we like 70s glam and the Beatles and stuff. And so on some albums, they did a really good job of when they did those kind of throwback sounding songs. They were cool songs and they sounded unique to Stone Temple Pilots. But the thing that is lame about a lot of the ones that they did over the years is the fact that a lot of them sound so similar to songs that already exist that it really bums me out. So it's like it's some of it's like it's weird. Like if you're gonna do a throwback sound, I understand that, but at the same time, if you're just making songs that sound a lot like songs that you're already trying to emulate, it's like, well, what is the, is it just make your song just becomes, it cancels your song out completely. And when you're doing that alongside of more rocking and interesting songs, like, not to be fair, like the heavier doesn't always mean better. But in the case of Stone Temple Pilots, I feel like there's an energy to their stuff when it clicks, and then when it doesn't click, it just really, you know, it's you might as well just like be a breeze that just blows past you, and then you don't even remember the song anymore. And this album is like that, where it's very hit or miss. Some of the songs are really cool, some of them I'm just like, why are they still doing this shit? But the one thing I have to say from my point of view, the thing that keeps this album from being dull is Scott Weiland. So it's very clear that they needed him in this band, because I feel like his vocals, like his idea for vocals and lyrics, because from what I know, you know, the other dudes would write songs, and sometimes they would have vocal ideas and they would leave it up to Scott whether or not he would go with what they were doing or do his own thing. And a lot of times he would have a completely different idea than what they were thinking of when they wrote the song. And that's why I think Stone Temple Pilots is such a unique band, because I really do think that all four of them were coming at things from kind of a different area altogether. Yeah. And so you take Scott's brain out of it, and it's missing something. It's missing the uniqueness that makes it Stone Temple Pilots. It's not just his voice, it's his approach. And so as much as I thought this album was just kind of like, yeah, it's all right. It like, I'm with you, where it's kind of sad that this was the last thing he got to do with them, especially because everything they did past this, I'm just like, we'll throw that, just get rid of that. I would say delete that. So yeah, so it's my number 6. It's a fine album. It's just to me, this is like you were talking about Shangri-La-Di-Da being a bit of a step back, but to me, this album is an even bigger step back, where they're doing a lot of the same shit they've already done, but the songwriting just isn't there to back it up. And so that's why it's my number 6. And that leads us all the way. We're coming full circle around to the other self-titled album for you, right?
Yep. So this is the self-titled Stone Temple Pilots album from 2018. One
number
with butterfly
5, right?
on it.
Is that where we are? Number 5?
Number 5, yeah.
Number 5.
Johnny 5 is alive.
The amount of times in episodes the amount of times in our episodes that we've referenced Short Circuit, I probably should go back and watch at least the first one again, because I haven't seen Short Circuit probably since I was a teenager. So
I'm a Short Circuit 2 guy.
I know we've talked about
that
this.
Movie, fucking hell yeah. Also, I know I've probably mentioned it in the past. I was traumatized when they beat him up. Like when they beat him up in the second one, and he picks up that rock, and like, I can't remember the dude's name, and he comes up to him and he's like, "Oh my God, Johnny, what happened to you?" He's like, he looks over at him like all sad, and he literally like, I thought like when I first saw it as a kid, he's gonna write something funny. He's gonna write something like, "I've seen better days," or something like that.
Yeah, I'm too old for this shit.
Yeah. Yeah. And the poor guy just writes out dying, and I was like,
which funny enough, like as a robot, like it seems like it would take way more energy to pick up something and write than to just say dying, you know. But you know, whatever.
Thing,
I'm not a movie.
He was more human.
Writer.
He was more human than any of the
more human than human. White Zombie coming soon. Probably not.
Yeah.
Eventually.
Oh, I got a funny White Zombie story real quick. Tangent alert. Woo-woo.
All right, White Zombie. Hey, you know what? We can tie this in with their album. I think La Sexorcisto is 30 years old this year too. So there you go.
It is 92. and I was sat in, I think it was like, it was the waiting room for the like on campus counselor or something, and I was waiting there to see my friend. She was coming out of there. Um and it was so funny. Like, no word of a lie, the whatever was on the radio was on some good shit. Because here's the thing, it went straight from like, I can't remember specifically what it was. It was probably like a Britney Spears song, but I think someone had something on shuffle, and it immediately after like hit me baby one more time, all of a sudden, and
Yeah.
I was like, White Zombie is playing in the fucking waiting room, and I got a little bit into it, and I was the only guy there, and I was just kind of there, just like, fuck yeah. And
Yep.
then like the counselor comes out and sees me, and I've got my hair down, and I'm there like, fuck yeah. And she's like, who are you? I'm like, oh, sorry, White Zombie. It was on. I can't help myself. But yeah, uh, that was a fun day. But yeah, so back to it. Stone Temple Pilots, 2018 Butterfly
Yeah.
fucking album.
Hmm.
Yeah, right out of the gate, you can tell Jeff Gutt has a very similar vocal delivery to Scott, but the dude can fucking sing. And in
Yeah.
tonally, if you were to replace an instrument, he is a perfect fit for the band. Whether or not he has the iconic charisma of Scott
Hmm.
is, you know, debatable, but um the dude can fucking sing. Middle of nowhere, coming in strong with a burst of energy, really playing with the stereo field in this song. Like, there's a lot of stuff coming from all directions, and like, I know every album you hear since stereo was a thing, like, of course there's panning going on, but I find with some albums it's more noticeable than others,
Hmm.
and on this one it's very noticeable, especially this song. Um, but yeah, Guilty is kind of rocking and jangly at points. Meadow is just kind of driving rock tempo, alt rocker, just a little lie. This song has a little bit of that core vibe in its veins. Like, this is the sort of thing that made me pick this album a little bit higher, because it was like, ooh, there's a little bit of that I haven't heard for a while. 6-8 has some mega riffage going on. Thought
Which
She'd Be
that
Mine is,
once again they also lose a point if you don't name a song after the fucking key, the tempo of the song or whatever. That just
yeah.
seems so. I know a lot of bands have done it, and there are some great songs that are named like that, but for the most part, it's like, that's lazy. Come on.
Yeah. Music theory.
I'm gonna put out an album where all the songs are just called 4/4.
Yeah. uh I was reminded today of that, was it 433, that like John Cage performance, where it's like the dude composed a piece of music, but it's literally four and a half straight minutes of him just sitting at a piano doing fuck all, like nothing. You ever seen that?
No.
It's like a art piece kind of fuck you kind of thing. But yeah, I remember learning about it and thinking, I mean, there is that thing of why not, but
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing, is that like I would never tell anybody to not do something. Well, I mean,
yeah,
musically speaking, because if like
yeah.
if you really feel it and you want to make whatever statement it is you're wanting to make, or no statement at all, if you just want to phone it in, do it, because I have the freedom to not listen to it or watch it or whatever.
uh, I was just thinking there, like, there's a few jokes I could have made there, but they're a little they're a little triple X for this show.
I mean,
But
I don't mind, but what if we become really popular with the children?
that's the thing. We're branching out, people. Wayne's World is filmed before a live studio audience. When they bring in like the fucking sign.
Yeah.
Sponsored by Noah's Arcade. Party on, Wayne.
Man,
I got to stop here because I'm going to quote the whole movie from there.
That's the thing. Every time I love that movie. It's one of my favorite ever. But like when we get to that section of the movie, I'm all like, I'd fucking like if somebody wanted us to sell out this show, I'd be like, yeah, fork over the money and let's do it. Like, what do you need me to do? You need me to have a sponsor that we make him feel like he's awesome? Okay, do it. You want to write a shitty theme song? Cool. Go ahead and do it. Give me that fucking money.
We should, for like one episode, do the like completely rewrite that Land of Disease riff and just like turn it into a cheesy 80s sitcom intro.
Oh man, that would be great.
That'd be funny.
Shit, if we had the budget, if somebody ever came to us and said, we love your podcast, we want to throw all this money your way to do whatever you want to do, and I would be like, cool. Well, I want to film multiple opening theme songs because we got to have a sitcom one. I want to have one where it's like a 70s cop show where we're doing hood slides and shit.
Yes,
and I would want to like do all these different things and just like, let's have fun with it. If you're throwing the money our way, let's spend it. And so and then maybe we'd have like cool guests also. That'd be the dream, really. The dream would be here's when if we ever get to this point, I'm going to lay this out right now for you. If this ever happens, we can look at each other and I can say we can die now. So
we did it.
Here's the scenario where we've been bought by some big company. We have all this money coming our way. We have a popular show that's, maybe we even made it to like Hulu or Netflix or something, doing our own thing. And the episode that we're doing is we're ranking all of the Megadeth albums with James Hetfield, like that. It's a discussion with you, me, and James about all of the Megadeth albums. I would just look at you and be like, where do we go from here? We might as well just stop.
We'd have it like the Jerry Springer show where Dave's in the other room and he walks on and we get him to fight. That
would be interesting, but I wouldn't even want that. I would honestly just want to like have a discussion about all their albums with James Hetfield because and we'd be such a big deal that he would be brutally honest about how he felt about everything because he seems like a dude that he's not going to talk a lot of shit. But, occasionally you get those little nuggets of him, really giving an opinion. And that would be because literally that would be us. That would just be fucking interesting as hell. And that would be as far as I wanted to go.
Yeah. I heard it first on the Cranked and Ranked show.
So eventually one day maybe we'll get there. I highly doubt it. But, we'll probably end up, doing the discography of Shotgun Messiah along with the vocalist of I don't know, the drummer of Quiet Riot. I don't know. I have no idea. It's like, what's the drummer of Quiet Riot? He's well known. I don't remember his name.
Fuck. I feel like such a bad person. Hang on.
Also,
mid show.
Somebody give me a point for Shotgun Messiah because that's a
hell yeah.
That's a deep dive reference right there.
Frankie Banali. That's the one.
That's
the
nice
guy.
Not to say that he's an easy get. I'm sure he's not, but that I just was trying to think of something that would just be kind of like not very interesting. Because I'm like, I'm not really into Quiet Riot, and I don't really care what the drummer thinks about Shotgun Messiah, if he even knows who they are.
So the big question on everybody's mind, Frankie, how much cocaine do you need to do to get enough reverb?
Never mind. That would be a pretty fun interview.
Yeah.
I don't want to burn bridges right now. Frankie, we will happily do an episode with you if you're
Get him on the show.
Yeah. Where were we?
We were at I think Thought She'd Be Mine. Uh, Psychedelic kind of ballad. Roll Me Under is this rockin' viber. Like, count me in for that stuff. That fucking chorus is awesome. Uh, Never Enough. That groove. The solo is really good too. Very blues rock. And this is kind of similar. See, this is my thing about two tracks together. The Art of Letting Go, vibed out ballad. Finest Hour, another nice vibed out ballad.
Yeah.
Good Shoes, twangy, groovy rock song, and Reds and Blues is this acoustic led ballady closer. Again, it's that kind of cool down sort of thing. It's good. It's good. I'm not gonna say it's not, because like,
Yeah.
it takes a lot of work to make an album, and I enjoyed it. It's not on the levels of my top picks, but I can see myself listening to this again.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's fair enough, but obviously, well, we took care of all the self-titled albums, so now we can move on to things with titles.
All two of them.
Yeah. So my number 5. So this is probably the last one that I really have like major gripes about. My number 5 is Tiny Music, Songs from the Vatican Gift Shop from 1996. So when this album came out, I think I had just graduated from high school, and I still paid a lot of attention to the modern rock music that was coming out. You know, I still watched MTV in 1996, even though it was slowly moving towards something that I wasn't interested in. But I remember when the video for Big Bang Baby premiered. Maybe it wasn't the premiere, but you know, it came out and I saw it several times. And I just remember feeling very like, why? Because what it was, and what it still seems like today, because in 1996, the one thing that you were seeing a lot from a lot of bands that were either grunge or heavier bands or whatever, a lot of these groups that for some reason didn't want to be associated with people who also liked metal, they all started pulling away and pretending that they never made heavy music, and all hiding behind this thing of like, the next album's going to be very Beatlesque and experimental. And even in 1996, I was just like, I'm fucking another one of these bands that are like, nobody seems to be taking us seriously. Now we're just going to make a collection of songs that all sound like other songs from the 70s. And that
Piece of Pie never happened, guys. We never did that. We never did a riff.
And I'm not saying that that's what they meant, but you listen to this album and it is an obvious attempt to move away from grunge. Yeah. There's no grunge on this album. And 100%. Weiland's vocals all of a sudden changed, where he had this higher and tighter delivery where it's almost like he was keeping himself from sounding like a good singer now, to where his voice used to be big and full and he had vibrato and he sounded really great. Now he's not like this. I'm gonna sing like this, and I'm like, you don't need to do that. That hurt my throat.
It's called 4 straight years of smoking like a chimney.
Anyway, I do appreciate the fact that he can do different kinds of vocals, but I appreciate that he can't. That's the thing. This hits number 5. Because in the story of Stone Temple Pilots, I like that this is a different chapter. Everybody came at us with something different. Now, that being said, I said this already. Like throwbacks are fine, but if they're throwbacks that sound exactly like songs that have already been made, and it's, you know, it just becomes a thing where it's just like, this doesn't even need to exist. But I have to admit, this album does have a fun energy. If you get past that part, that it's a lot of retread stuff, it's a fun album, but it's hard to get past the fact that this is a band, and then they're not the only ones that are guilty of this, but this is a band that was part of something new. Like whatever you want to call it, even if you want to do like we've done where we nitpick what actually sounds like grunge and what's just alternative rock or what's heavy alternative rock or whatever, they were a part of this thing that was new. It was a popular thing. It was a new thing, and they were part of it. And then all of a sudden, just deciding to retreat to an old thing that has already been done, and then do it very similar to how it was already done. Like it seems really lame. even today, it seemed lame back then, and it seems lame now. But I give them credit. Doing something different is good, but relying on things that have already been done to death just makes for a kind of, even if it's done really well, it's still kind of a underwhelming album. And there a big thing, and I'm going to agree with you on this. Tripping on a Hole in a Paper Heart. It's weird because that song is amazing. And it's almost like it's an island of Stone Temple Pilots in the middle of a sea of shit that isn't Stone Temple Pilots.
That is exactly how I feel about it too. It is the only major standout track on that album to me.
Yeah. And so I give them credit for whatever their reasoning was, because I'm pretty sure it wasn't all just grunge isn't cool anymore. I'm sure I'm sure they all had many influences, but from a fan standpoint at the time, I was just like, yeah, this is not. It's not experimentation or progression in a way that is interesting. It's in a way that is bland and overdone. And this album does have its moments, but it is a big step down from the album, 2 albums prior to this. And I don't think a band should continue to do the same shit over and over again. But if you're really breaking things down, when it comes to the quality of the songwriting, the originality behind it, the execution, all of it, this album is just it doesn't cut it. So I like things about it. I don't like things about it. It sits at number 5, Tiny Music. There you go, man. That Weiland impression really fucking did a number on my throat.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up as well, because I completely forgot to mention it. Like on something like Core, for example, he sounds really full. He really bellows out what he's singing. Yeah. Of course, there is that element of you could attribute it to the fact that was very popular. The Jarl, yeah, it was very popular very quickly in the early 90s.
But the thing is,
it worked.
You could accuse him of yarling on Core, but not on Purple.
That's where I was going with it. Like he even on Purple, he still has like a fullness to the way he delivers it. He's like, he goes from yarling to crooning, but it works.
Yeah. And to me, it's kind of like, it's not as drastic of a difference, but it's kind of like going from The Real Thing into Angel Dust and finally hearing Mike Patton's full voice, how he sings when he just sings. And Purple is where that went. And then all of a sudden, it's like Tiny Music is The Real Thing, where all of a sudden, like Scott just decides to do a different voice for some weird reason.
It's kind of like, as well, I'm glad you brought up Faith No More, because I was also going to mention it. Like, we're on the same wavelength, dude. Basically, it's that whole thing of you don't want a band to make the same album twice, but on the flip side, you still want you want what makes them special to stay there. So like, I wouldn't want to hear Faith No More, for example, nearly as much if Billy and Mike Borden weren't there, because they are the absolute heart of everything going on there.
Yeah,
simply Yeah.
To be fair though, if a band like Faith No More decided our next album is all going to be throwback 70s glam music, you know that at least the songwriting would be good. And it wouldn't just sound like songs that already existed from the 70s. They would be taking aspects and making them new. This album didn't do that. They took aspects, made them the same.
Yeah.
And then there's your album. So
that's the thing. It just feels there's an authenticity that isn't quite there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a little heavy handed, as they say, when it comes to trying to do something different. But you sound evil. Laugh again right now. I'm gonna put that in the episode.
Does it sound cool?
It sounds demonic and weird and psychedelic at the same time.
I'm gonna do the Aussie laugh. Shabba.
All right, that's now we're back. We're back.
We're back
with Eddie Sparxx and his number 4 Stone Temple Pilots album.
Number 4, Perdita. Yeah,
I don't understand how this album got this high, but maybe you were really high when you listened to it.
So I have a defense for this album, and I think it's a defense.
Did you get laid during this album? Does that have a really nice vibe to it because of that?
This is one of few albums I haven't been laid to.
One of few.
Okay, so the reason this is number 4 is, and why it sits here is, granted, there is a pretentious edge to the whole, we used vintage instruments, which gives us bonus points. No, could have done without that. Could have done without any layers of we used this and that's why it's good.
I mean, the average everyday music listener, if you play a guitar from the 1800s and then play one that was made last year, most people will not be able to really tell the difference.
I remember, I remember in college having a bit of a tone snob phase where I was kind of like, Randy Rhoads, great player, but his tone on Diary of a Madman could have been better if he did. Yeah, shut the fuck up, former Eddie. Shut up. Shut the fuck up. No one fucking cares what fucking tone is apart from 10% of the fucking crowd, if that. That's
I mean, it's very true.
Yeah. So
I mean, literally, you right there is me talking to me about anything I said in my 20s. Period. I'm just like, dude, shut the fuck up.
Yeah. So, I've aged gracefully, as they say. So
you're on the right track, sir. I would say.
Cool. So unfortunately, my list isn't anything to go by. But
I'll allow it. It's okay.
Here's the thing. I think the reason I like this quite a bit more than you did was because I know it's not a country album, but it has a lot of stuff in there that you would hear on a kind of that sort of vibe album. I like the relaxing vibe of this album, but like if I stack this up next to something like Tiny Music or Shangri-La-Di-Da, I think the reason I don't take to those albums is because it's not very focused. Whereas this one at least has an intention. Like,
sure,
it's set out to be an acoustic album and really went in that direction. I think it's because it's such a bold step into something they haven't done before. I really like it. So
I mean, to be fair, I would not use the word bold at all because they've done acoustic songs before. it's not, I mean, not to shit on what you just said, but but I would never use the word bold. But I agree. I applaud them for having a point of view or a plan and just fully executing it as it is or as it came out.
That's kind of the angle I'm coming from. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, I think fairly well. I know you said no. I did think it was a nice song.
You sound like my mom talking about music.
Here's
Mom,
the
what do
thing.
you think of that new Nirvana song? It's nice.
But that's the thing, that this album, the vibe of it is nice. I mean, it's inoffensive. It is at points quite background music-y, and I think, you know, a lot of these placings could change on any day, but I did have a nice relaxing time to this album. But I was, where is it? Perdita, those nylon guitars do sound nice, as do the vocal melodies. I didn't know the time. I will say I liked the flute solo, and I liked the saxophone parts in Years. From a vibe perspective,
All they needed to do was just get a whole bunch of different musicians to do the songs for them, and then they would. There you go.
We're what, like an hour or something into this podcast, and you're still roasting it.
I told you I was fuming at how bad this album was, but I'm never gonna get over it.
Oh man, this could be our biggest gap between who likes it more.
I don't know. No, that'd be Misfits. I think the Misfits was the one where
yeah, actually, you know what, you're right.
There was like a fucking Grand Canyon in between us.
She's My Queen. It is like, it's an awesome.
She's your queen. I don't know what. Immediately.
Now that movie we could agree on.
Great movie. I even enjoyed the
Just
sequel.
let your soul glow.
Wow.
Just let it shine through. Just let your soul glow. Feel it all so silky smooth. Yes.
That was fucking awesome.
You can't get me started on Coming to America and not expect me to do the fucking Soul Glow jingle.
I'm sorry, I didn't. To those of you who get annoyed at the tangents, I'm sorry that I derailed this.
There is not a single dry pair of panties in the audience right now. Garen fucking T.
I mean, considering that there's probably maybe two in the audience.
I've done my job.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
I came, I saw, I came again.
And so did everybody else.
This is Cranked and Ranked After Dark. This is the 976 version.
Not safe for work, ladies and gentlemen.
I found She's My Queen kind of very Led Zeppelin 3. Miles Away. Now, this one gave me kind of like a Soviet World War II monologue like vibe. There were parts in it where I was like, I almost wanted to do like some gamers in the audience will recognize this reference. I was going to do a Viktor Reznov from Call of Duty World at War, where he's like, one day we will take the fight to their land, to their blood. You know?
That was good. I think you have a voiceover career in your future.
I'm looking forward to it. Yeah. I honestly, if anyone wants me to do late 80s soul jingles, I think I'm hired now.
I was just impressed at your range. Like, you're like fucking Mariah Carey and shit.
Yeah. I was about to hit you with the whistle notes, but I don't think y'all are ready for that yet.
Nah, no, we're not. We're not. You fucking nail Loving You in at karaoke.
Oh, I'd demolish it. I just need a hit Christmas single that gets played to death over the next 30 years, and I can just sit back and watch the royalties flood in. I feel like if
that's what we'll do next year, because we can't do top 10 Christmas songs again. I think next year you and I should just write a Christmas song.
Song, let's do a whole fucking album.
All right, the Cranked and Ranked Christmas album. Hopefully everybody forgets about that by the time Christmas comes around.
Patreon exclusive.
OnlyFans,
yes.
It'll be called Jingle Balls.
Oh, that caught me off guard. I walked right into that one.
I have to admit, we've made this review of this album more interesting than it would be if it was just you talking about it. So
this feels mean. Now I will say that this next song title, I was kind of like, okay, who let Tom Petty name this song? You found yourself while losing your heart. Like, there's it.
I love Tom Petty. I'll take that title.
I love Tom Petty too. I was listening to his greatest hits the other night in the shower. Nice bit of reverb on that snare. Always welcome in my book. I Once Sat at Your Table is a nice little instrumental. And Sunburst is this dreamy closing track. Is nice. Again, I'm going mom mode on this. The reason I picked it so high is because it's so different, you know.
I mean, to be fair, that should have been the marketing for this album. It should have been, you know, the new album from Stone Temple Pilots, and then it's got their moms up there, and they're all like, "It's nice." That should have been it, because I think their moms are probably the ones that are the most excited about this album. Anyway,
yeah, this one goes all out acoustic vibes, and I think they did a good job from a vibe standpoint. I think that's why I liked it. I liked it this much is because some of these lower albums feel a bit disjointed. This one at least has a consistency to it.
Plus, there are many albums out there that if the vibe hits you the right way, then that's really all you need. If it's done well, you don't really need interesting songs or original ideas if the vibe is something that's pleasing to you. So I totally get where you're coming from. That's not my number 4. My number 4, another one you already talked about, Shangri-La-Di-Da from 2001. So this is the last one before we get to what I consider banger central for Stone Temple Pilots. I like this one because it does, in certain tracks, especially the first one, it continues the energy of number 4. But they do go back to grabbing from the pool of like the tiny music ideas a little more. And I feel like they're trying to give you best of both worlds here.
Yeah.
But the while I do enjoy this album, it does feel like a lot of the same ideas repackaged in songs that are not as good as the ones that came in previous albums. And it does, especially because if you chronologically listen to their albums from Core to Purple, and then you got Tiny Music, and then you get number 4. Once you get to Shangri-La-Di-Da, it becomes very clear that they're a band that's kind of lost steam, creatively speaking.
Yeah.
Still very good at what they do, but they can still write, at this point, in my opinion, still write some good songs. But it just seems like the well of ideas was running out. And I really think that this album, it does feel like it does struggle to be engaging most of the time, especially when you get around the midsection of the album. And because half the songs are good, the other half are not that great, and it's actually kind of frustrating when you listen to it. But stepping away from it and just enjoying the album for what it is, this one I have an easier time just sort of getting into and just letting it happen. But because you know, like I said, these 4 guys playing together, it's cool. And at least in this case, I feel like they're still kind of they still have a little bit of they're still the momentum from number 4, I think, is still there. pushing them along. I just think that the actual ideas and songs aren't as good. So it winds up here at number 4, Shangri-La-Di-Da, which brings us, because no, we have the same top 3.
Yes.
So whether or not they're in the same order, we have officially entered Banger Central, in my opinion. So let's start with your number 3.
I can't confidently say for numbers 1 or 2 what order they're going to be in, but I know, straight up know, that your number 3 is the same as my number 3.
Oh, you think so?
That is number 4.
Okay, fine. You called it.
Hey!
Our joint number 3 is number 4.
It is. I really like this album. After a complete rejection of all things heavy on Tiny Music, they flat out celebrate it on this one.
Yeah.
And, you know, to be honest, this is arguably the heaviest one they did.
No, yeah, I think it is. Absolutely.
Yeah. So if you like chunky riffage, you know, barring some moments on core, this one.
I'm sorry. Yeah. That's like there's a thing, like if you're a fan of heavy music in general, just the once the riff kicks in and down, yeah, that riff has like the lowest hanging balls I've ever heard on a Stone Temple Pilots riff. Like it is. And like it is like that. That's just one of the there's a lot of that on this album, of those riffs where you just go, where the fuck did that riff come from? Like
they're like pig nuts too. They're like fucking huge.
Yeah, they're dragging on the ground.
Yeah, down.
Not to say that making a good song is equated to being male. That's not what we're saying.
That's not what we're saying. We're being inclusive here.
Yeah.
However, hypothetically, were a woman to have a pair of balls. But yeah, that'll be an interesting sex life. Anyway, down, this is more like it. Like, yeah. Oh, when I first heard that, like, I remember I didn't listen to this album for a long time, thinking that they just kept going in the Tiny Music direction. When I first heard this, I was shocked. I was like, reggae riffs. Yeah, Heaven and Hot Rods gives me the vibes of a party that I would like to go to. Pruno it sounds like something off of Purple, but on steroids. Church on Tuesday. I like the ascending guitar part in the pre-chorus. Sour Girl is, you know, one of the probably the biggest hit off of this, which is ironically one of the softest. It's this really cool psychedelic song.
The weird thing about that, and my memory might be a little bit cloudy, but from my point of view, and you know, still at this point being somebody that watched MTV, Sour Girl, I feel like became a hit. It's a good song, but if I remember right, there was so much discussion about Scott Weiland's body, because he's like shirtless in the video, and it seemed like every discussion on MTV was like, look at Scott Weiland's body. And so I feel like the song became a hit because everyone was like, watch this video with Scott Weiland looking thin and fit or whatever it was, you know. I don't really remember what the discussion was, but I just remember people talked more about how he looked with his shirt off than they did about the actual song. And so there you go.
Yeah, I mean, dude looked pretty good. Even if he was winding through like a really warped Teletubbies hellscape. Yeah.
Also doing, you know, that's the only gripe I have about Scott Weiland, is that some of that dancing he would do, I'd be like, oh, come on, dude. It seems like he needs to be like, you know, in front of the speaker on acid at Woodstock.
Yeah. Oh man. This is the thing though. This was the part of the album where I was like, oh, was No Way Out. And
Yeah.
I even sent you a video of me, and the riff is yummy as fuck. Like, it has this almost new metal feel. What, straight up has a new metal feel to it.
It
It's
does. It does.
1999.
Yeah.
It has like a few moments in it that I started doing a Fred Durst impression over the top, and it felt really, really right in the moment. And I
Yeah.
don't care what anyone says. If it's remotely Limp Bizkit edge, I'ma rap the fucking chorus to My Way or the Highway over it. You know? This time I'ma let it all come out. Fucking awesome. Hey, even Chromium Dioxide gave it a fucking pass. It's okay to like Limp Bizkit, and he hates the 90s, dude. Like,
that's yeah. He hates some 90s, but yeah, at that point, yeah, I feel like that's the true gatekeeper of cool right there.
hell yeah. Glide. Oh no, I skipped over Sex and Violence. Naughty, naughty.
That's a good one.
It's an up-tempo punky kind of one. Glide is this big psychedelic epic one. I Got You is a chill kind of thing. MC5, punky hard rocker.
Yeah.
Atlanta, very Doors influenced closing track.
Yeah.
All in all, fucking fantastic record.
Absolutely.
And if it was not for the fact that the top two are such stone cold classics, would it would be higher than a bronze.
I would consider this of its era a classic because 1999. This is the year of like Limp Bizkit and Korn and stuff. Like whenever all that shit was huge, so them going heavier. If you want to be a dick about it, you could say that they reverted in order to cash in on the fact that heavy music was popular again, but it doesn't sound that way. Like this album's a return to form without sounding rehashed or like a retreat or anything like that.
The songs are there. That's why.
Yeah, that's the thing. And I do think it's because when they're in that element, I think they do their best shit when they're able to just write riffs and add some odd flourishes and time signatures and stuff here and there. Like I think that's when they really succeed as a band. But at the same time, you've got Sour Girl, Atlanta, and stuff that does still have a bit of a throwback sort of vibe and still holds on to some of that psychedelic or whatever kind of shit they were wanting to do. But the songs are good and they don't sound disjointed. Like as an album, it flows the way an album should flow, with different types of songs. Now, I don't know if you can hear that. Somebody's booming their bass.
I did hear it.
It's like right next door. My neighbor he's one of those guys that likes to hang out outside and just turn his car stereo way the fuck up. So now you're gonna hear some bass.
This is where we got like a fucking copyright claim.
Yeah,
for like
if they can even hear it.
Yeah.
Anyway, so number 4 is I love this album, and I like the fact that it just seems like a more honest album. Like this is a progression that I feel like with Tiny Music, it was like a heavy-handed attempt to do something different. Whereas like this, if you're talking about Core to Purple, this feels like more natural. Like there are different elements and different songs on here than they had written before, but there's something that's real natural when it comes to them. It doesn't feel forced. It doesn't feel like they were doing something they didn't feel. Like it feels like a genuine, honest Stone Temple Pilots album. And that's when it came out. We talked about this album before because it was in my top of 1999, and we did our top 5 of 1999. And I remember when it came out, I was totally into it. And in 99, I wasn't even listening to a whole lot of heavy shit. Here and there I was, but I was one of those people that couldn't find any heavy music that was really doing it for me. So I was listening to a whole lot of different shit. But this was one that I couldn't deny. that it was fucking great, and still great today. Production is great, sounds amazing, everyone sounds great, songs are great. I mean, it's a killer album, but not quite as killer as the other two we're going to talk about. So it's our joint number 3. Number 4.
Cool.
Number
So,
2.
Th-
Just going to say numbers.
Now, this is where I think we could do a crisscross.
We
Because
turn our clothes backwards and stuff.
yeah, I'll just very quick. Because I know I'm trying to guess. I'm trying to guess. I feel like you really appreciate how they expanded with Purple. So I'm thinking Purple's your number 1.
Could be.
However, could be. My number 2 is Purple. And I feel the same way about Purple as I do about Verses by Pearl Jam. Now,
okay,
hear me out. I'm not saying Stone Temple Pilots sound like a Pearl Jam knockoff. What I am saying is their career trajectory is comparable. So
yeah,
you've got. I love the way 10 is produced. I slightly wish that they'd kept the reverb heavy thing a little and carried it over a bit more on Verses.
yeah.
I feel the exact same way about Purple's shift to a bit of a drier production because I fucking love how Core sounds.
I mean, it's not that dry. Purple, it's
compare it to Core though. Core is just
I guess you're right.
Swimming in stuff going on.
Yeah.
And so I recognize the greatness of the songs themselves on their own merit. However, I greatly miss the production approach of the first album. Therein creating this 10 or Painkiller situation where I am 9 times out of 10 gonna go for Core above any other album. Maybe 8 times out of 10 because I do really love Purple as well.
Yeah.
But there's something about Core. I'll get to that one. But yeah, Meat Plow, heavy grooving opener. Really love the riffs on this song. What a kick-ass way to open the record. Vaseline, sometimes less is more, and this riff proves it. You know, even if Yngwie Malmsteen thinks, how can less be more?
Also, because you were mentioning the production and you were comparing it to Verses, they're both produced by Brendan O'Brien, I believe.
Yeah.
And whereas I think their first albums had different producers, which would explain the difference in sound. So Brendan O'Brien became the dude everybody wanted to go to.
Yes, he did. But this album won me over with the quality of its songs. I think this one, from a song perspective, is like, I miss the old production, but I cannot fuck with like how good the songs are. Loungefly is this cool, psyched out, vibey one. I love how sneaky Scott sounds. Like, I wanna do,
yeah.
He just sounds like he's up to mischief. Interstate Love Song. This is their Enter Sandman. Every band has that one song everyone knows. It's a great song with like a slight little bit of a country twang to the riff, but that guitar riff reminds me a little bit of the Core era, which I love. Still Remains is a big guitar driven ballad. Love when this song opens up. Scott's melodies are ace here. Pretty Penny is the Polly of this album. I've always called it.
Yeah,
it's like they're kind of like sister tracks. They're both acoustic grunge
side
album tracks.
Yeah,
side closers. And Penny and Polly, there's a similarity there. Silvergun Superman though, like, the groove in this riff. arguably the heaviest song on the album. Not even arguably, it's straight up the chunkiest one. Big Empty, my favorite track from this one. I love it. The chorus is so explosively anthemic. And again, it's those very chorused but heavily distorted guitars that really, I wish that they'd kept the chorus on the guitars a bit more on
Yeah.
this one as much as they did on Core. But I know I sound like I'm filleting Core. Believe me when I say I bought Core with my own money and fell in love with it as a 14-year-old kid.
Mhm.
After hearing Plush in San Andreas like 300 times prior, so I'd
Yeah.
become attached to that sound so much. Unglued, straight up alt rock, upbeat driving rocker. Army Ants is this cool up tempo rocker with some psychedelic passages in there. Kitchenware and Candy Bars, I love the part in this song where he goes like, sail me down the river.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
part is like ear candy. And then you have my second album.
Yeah.
uh, it's actually a song by singer Richard Peterson. And from what I remember, they actually heard it. None of the band perform on it. It's actually a song from like '86 or something. But they liked it and they thought it'd be super funny to put it as a hidden track. So they thought, ah, fuck it,
Oh,
put this guy's track on here. I mean, I could be talking out of my ass, but that's what I heard.
I don't know. I just always thought it was a funny, everyone was putting hidden songs and
Yeah,
they just did like a funny, way different thing for theirs.
I feel like they heard, obviously when Faith No More retroactively added Easy to Angel Dust, I feel
Yeah.
like they probably heard that and thought, huh, we should end ours with a lounge song. Oh, or they may have just heard Edge of the World. I don't know, but yeah, it's awesome, awesome album.
It is awesome, which is why we're going to
Yeah,
crisscross here, sir. Where
hey,
my number two is not Purple. It is Core from
it's red.
1992. The debut album from 1992. I already talked about this earlier, where when this came out, I wasn't impressed with Sex Type Thing.
Hmm.
I really felt like they seemed like a band that was trying to emulate several popular bands of the time at once. Like I really felt like, oh, they're trying to be Pearl Jam and Alice in Chains. It seemed when it came out, it was very like hey guys, we're grunge too, and I was like, okay, cool. But like I said, a friend of mine dubbed me the album, and once I heard the whole thing, I was just like, oh well, there's a that's probably my least favorite song on the album, and but it's it's grown on me a lot, obviously, but the rest of the album is just so fucking good. It's like an amazingly strong debut. But can't go without saying that this came out the same day as Dirt from Alice in Chains.
Yes.
So that's interesting because they also have kind of similar looking covers with like a lady and stuff,
Yeah.
and that was another thing that kept me from getting into this album because fucking Dirt came out this day. So it's so like it's like I was already fully into Dirt, and then you see like the Sex Type Thing video, and I'm just like, nice try, fellas. Somebody already nailed this.
Yeah.
And so yeah, so I got into it eventually, but once I got into it, I was a fan of the album. A big thing for this one for me is that both of these top two albums are those kind of albums that guitar melodies or certain vocal melodies or parts of the songs literally make me feel like I'm back in 1992. Like there's a nostalgia to some of the sounds here that I just go, wow. I just feel like you feel it. You physically feel like the same kind of feeling. And I don't know what that would be. I mean, it's nostalgia, but like, I don't know why that happens. It's very weird.
Here's the thing, right? I know what you mean, but I found out that there's this thing called, I think it's called Anamoya or
I think we
something.
talked about this before. Yeah.
Yeah, where something can make you nostalgic for a time you didn't even exist in.
Yeah.
And this album is one of those for me. Like,
Yeah.
I strangely, like, I don't so much remember myself as a 14-year-old getting into this album. I remember myself being there,
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
this strange warped kind of way. I like my brain plays this trick on me. It's like, yeah, yeah, you were hanging out in 92.
Well, I think that that's also something that I might be wrong, but I feel like that's something that's going to be, it's going to get lost for the younger generation, because I almost feel like so much production of not just popular music, but rock music and everything has been so samey for like 2 decades that
Yeah.
eventually it's going to be like, this takes me back to like what year? I don't know, somewhere in the 2000s.
Yeah. Yeah, it's strange, isn't it? Like I'd say, and this is not me, blaming anyone, like, but it seems like ever since like late 2000s Meshuggah, that's just kind of been the industry standard, and yeah, we're still there.
Yeah, I just think that that's going to be a weird thing of the past, but it may actually prove to be a a positive for the music that we love and the music that I grew up on, because music from the 70s, 80s, and 90s will be so unique to those times that it'll probably gain an enjoyment for people in the future, because they're like, oh, well, there's all this stuff that like sounded really samey and it's hard to place where it came from because the sound wasn't very unique. But
Yeah.
now we go back and listen to these other things where you hear an album from the 70s and you know that that's when it was from.
Hmm.
Now I know there are things from this era that will date it to now, obviously, like, trap beats and auto tune and, things like that. And when it, in the metal world, clicky bass drum, you
Yeah.
know,
But it's more about the vibe rather than like songwriting techniques
yeah,
or a popular thing to do, you know?
yeah. That's the thing that like I don't know if we'll ever get back to that again, and I hope that we do. Or I say we, I meant, even if I'm gone in popular music, I loved the 90s, the first half of the 90s so much, because music was so important to people that everyone was
Yeah.
okay with a single being 5.5 minutes long, and
Yes.
having a middle section that fully plays out and takes the listeners somewhere else. And nobody was like, why is this song so long? I guess my daughter says that. My daughter looks at songs and she's blown away by how long Paradise City is, because she loves that song, which she's like, the song is like 6 minutes long. And I'm like, well, yeah, they do 6 minutes worth of stuff in Paradise City.
Yeah.
um, but anyway, so but Core really makes me feel like it's an album that's very much of its time and sounds that way to me. But I think that it still sounds pretty vital today. It doesn't sound dated, as we talk about a lot of music from the early 90s doesn't sound dated.
Mm.
Still sounds very good. The one thing I'm going to say, while this album is not my number one, to me, Plush is one of the best songs of the 90s. Like, if I was going to put together like a mix of, say, 20 songs that to me define the 90s as why the 90s music was so great, Plush is probably one of those ones that I would put there, because it's such a, I remember when I first heard it, I thought I tried to go figure out the riff on an acoustic guitar, because the riff was like, I don't think I'd ever heard anything that sort of, what do you call that? A descending kind of,
Yeah.
but it keeps part of the same chord and then adds different notes and walks down. And I was like, that's really interesting. And then you just
Mm.
listen to the way that, the chorus goes into the I guess you would call it midsection.
Yeah.
And then there's another, it's like there's a chorus, but then there's another there's so much going on in Plush. Like, it is such an
Yeah.
amazingly well-written song, where it's so, if you want to pull it apart, it's really interesting. But if you just
Mm.
want to sit back and enjoy it, you can do that too. Like, it's It's fucking great. I love that song.
Here, yeah, I Plush is another reason why GTA San Andreas has one of the most impeccable soundtracks of anything ever.
Yeah.
But I am gonna completely back you up here. I'll mention it again when I talk about Core, which I'm pretty much am now because it's my number one.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I'm done. So we can merge over to your
cool.
core review.
While I'm still on Plush, before I forget about it,
Okay.
that pre chorus, like I always call it, it's like the pre the part where it goes to that big open D and it bling and I feel it,
Yeah.
like all of the notes on that guitar, everything is chorused to hell, everything opens up, and it's just easily if I had to do like a top 5 eargasm moments of any song ever, that would quite possibly be the number one spot.
Yeah.
Like, it's up there.
It's great. That's not even my favorite part of the song, but I mean, it's still great. It's got so many good parts in it.
Well,
No, my part is actually when it hits that sort of minor sounding chord and it goes into that "Where you go,
you're going for tomorrow.
That first chord, just the way it goes from what they were playing before to that. I'm all like, oh, it sounds so good. It's so pleasing in the way that it moves. So
there's so many like crazy interesting movements in chords in that song.
Yeah.
Like I used to know it off by heart. I'll have to relearn it on guitar. But I actually managed to get for an assignment, me and a couple other people, I think it was for GCSE, which is like what would the equivalent over that there be? That's like it's like brain is breaking when you're like 16 and you're not doing like full on exams yet. You're just kind of doing
school.
Yeah, but it's like you do your GCSEs, then you do your A levels, and then you do a master's or something. The education system.
I mean, the equivalent here would probably just be the standardized tests that we do, but those tests they don't seem so much like you have to get past this in order to get to the next level.
Okay, fair. I did an assignment and we did the unplugged version of Plush.
Okay, all right, fair enough.
Yeah. And I was really lucky. I was just sat there playing the bling ding bling bling ding bling, and the music teacher leaned over and said, "Dude, is that Stone Temple Pilots?" And I went, "Yeah." It's like, "Let's do that." I thought, "Yeah, let's do that." But yeah, cool. I get to talk about one of my favorite albums of all time.
I love how I've already talked about this a lot while you were talking about Purple.
Yeah. that's how strongly I feel about this one.
Yeah.
Like, this is a top 10 of all time album for me. It's arguably the first grunge album I was deeply into, though I was familiar with the big hits of 10 and Nevermind by this point. I was swiftly approaching 14 years old. When I refer in any review of any album I do on this show, if I refer to anything as vibey, this album has the most of that, paired with some of the coolest fucking riffs I've ever heard. And the layers of guitars on this album is insane. Like, all of the chimey clean parts over the tops are like really heavy riffs. I'm gonna go into it. Dead and Bloated, sludgy, Sabbathy, psychedelic opener, awesome riff and chord progressions. I love the part where it really opens up, like, whoa, yeah. And she says it's natural. I feel like that. It busts back open, and like, really, when there's a lot of explosions on this album. Sex Type Thing, awesome up-tempo rocking song with an anti-rape message that was kind of lost in translation to some people.
Well, here's the thing. Here's how I don't they fucked up, but I'm going to blame the video director. You can't
Yeah.
write a song where you're using blunt language to make the opposite point, but then in the video you have a shirtless man who's always kind of like, look at how manly I am, and like,
yeah,
it literally makes you lose the point that you were trying to make. The video should not have been that. And then it's got like dudes hanging from chains or whatever. It's like the whole, even me watching the video for the first time, I go, did they put a dude in this video that's supposed to look like the guy from the Facelift album cover? These guys are really phoning in, like, we really want to be Alice in Chains. Please love us.
See, that's the thing. I lacked the context of all of this stuff when I first heard this album. So I just got really into it, and you know, I kind of just looked around and I was like, oh, so this is the visual aesthetic of what grunge is. And I
really think that if you take all the aspects of the video and then just take those things out of it, like put his shirt back on and don't have him hanging from chains. Because I get there's parts where there's like a lady and there's like a ring of fire that goes around her. And there are parts of it where I go, I feel like they were trying to make a point, but the point is completely lost because the guy who's singing is a guy you don't know. And he just looks like a dude that might be a douchebag. and so it was just a bad choice video wise, in my opinion.
Fair. But then you get Wicked Garden, which hits that perfect middle ground between the vibes of the opening one and, you know, that 1-2 punch of Dead and Bloated and Sex Type Thing into this one.
Yeah.
I love the really cool, like almost sitar sounding bit where like da 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 wow, and like those cool like chimey bits or layer over the top.
And the music video, I've always liked that one because they filmed some of it on actual film and then took the film and actually scratched all these. So when you see these weird shapes, but they're all scratched into the actual film. So it's almost like they animated these errors into the film. And I'm like, that's the kind of thing they would never do that anymore. Or they could just put it in a program and it's done in 10 minutes for them. But they had to go and individually scratch each frame to make these weird things happen. And that's the we've talked about this before. The music video making in the late 80s, early 90s is like there's nothing like it. Like there was so many cool ideas, and it was fun to watch these videos, and I still like that one.
Yeah, dude, No Memory is like it's only an instrumental intro to Sin, but it's unforgettable. It's so cool. And then you get Sin, like holy shit, what a great song. The first guitar solo of the album is in this song. But it's those like really ringing out like all of those cool chords in there. I love the reverb, how it works with Scott Weiland's vocals on this. He never really did much of the reverb thing again. He did a little bit of it on Purple, but
Purple has a lot of reverbs on his vocals. I mean, go back and listen to it. There's a lot of reverb.
It varies from song to song. With this album, absolutely. It's like with this album, it's right the way through. Naked Sunday got a little bit of funk seeping in there. Creep is this melancholy acoustic ballad. Then you get Piece of Pie, which is fucking awesome. Alice in Chains levels of heavy. Plush, again, classic. We're back here.
Yeah.
The nostalgia hit I get from this song sends me places. Wet My Bed. No, I didn't.
That's one of those 90s tracks where it's like, why is this on this album? Okay.
Yeah. someone heard a certain Primus album, I think. It was the first thing they actually recorded, and that cool thing where the producer walks in at the end and he goes, okay, now what? That
Oh.
part, that's real. That's the very first thing they recorded for the
When are we
album.
gonna do some actual songs, dudes?
And then, oh, but then you get Cracker Man. I have broken the speed limit to this song many times because it
Mm.
just has that, yeah, cop chase feel to it. And finally it closes out on Where the River Goes. I love this song. It's hypnotic. 8 minute song. You get so lost in you don't realize 8 minutes has passed. It's kind of like I've seen people say, "Oh, it goes on way too long. They could have cut at least 2 minutes." I'm like, no, I want to hang out in this
No,
fucker.
no, it's a good closer. I like the fact that they let that one breathe a little bit.
Yeah, and that is why it's one of my top albums by any band ever. Is it
Okay.
has a sound completely unique to it, and
Yeah.
I I wish more cores existed, but would core be as special if that was the thing? That is the big
I,
question.
I don't think it would be. Yeah. So yeah, obviously my number one is Purple from 1994, their second album. Now, there was a huge buildup to this album for me because I became a fan. But then months before the album came out, the soundtrack for the movie The Crow came out, and on it
Yes.
was the song Big Empty. And it was, I mean, Big Empty is on that album is like the plush of Purple. Like
Yeah.
I just remember hearing it and just thinking like this is like such a fucking amazing song. So there was a really big build up to this album coming out, and luckily, it delivered to me because in Purple there's a progression not only in style but in songwriting, and they still sound similar to what they were doing in Core, but I feel like now they sound like their own band. So you can't you'd have to stretch it to be like this sounds like Alice in Chains or this sounds like Pearl Jam, because I think they found their comfort zone and like, well, here's the kind of things that we do, and we've used our influences for what we need, and now we've become our own band. And then the next album they would just go back to fucking taking things that other people did. But I really like the fact that they on this album, because it's as an album, it flows really well and it gives you all these different flavors of stuff. I mean, with songs like Interstate Love Song and Pretty Penny, and then things like that. It's so they are branching out, but the cool thing about their branching out on this album is that they nail it every direction that they go.
Yes. Yeah.
The songs are really memorable no matter what they decided to do on this album. Um, and also, there I guess you could still say there are grunge elements on Purple, but for the most part, to me, it's just a heavy alternative album. Like the
Yeah.
grunge part of it, like maybe Meat Plow. There's probably a couple of songs, Superman Silver Gun, probably you could still draw the comparisons, but the way that they were doing things, and they were almost coming at it from a more psychedelic point of view, which I like. I like that they did that because it was very unique. They at this point they had their own thing going. Um, Honestly, like when I was going through and listening to this album, because I've heard this album hundreds of times, and I was trying to write down notes, and I was like, going through and listening to each song, and every song like has a point where I'm just like, this fucking song, man. And there's no song that I don't do that to. So this is a perfect album for me. There's no song I would want them to do differently. I like the production of this album because it does still have the big production elements of the early 90s. Sure, they turned down the reverb a little bit, but to me, like, this still sounds massive. And
Yeah.
there's nothing about this album that I would change. Um it's yeah. It's when it comes to Stone Temple Pilots, like, this is my go-to album always. And it's never gotten less enjoyable for me. Like it is one of those that I hold up there with like the best of the 90s as those albums that it's aged amazingly well. And so that's why it's my number one. So we had our little overlap or crossover. It made for a more interesting episode because we didn't match up on anything except for number 3 or number 4. Yeah, no, whatever. Number 4, number 3. That one. The one that we had at number 3, which is called number 4. Who does number 2 work for? Anyway, so that's Stone Temple Pilots. So for the first time in 2022, 3, 2, 1, yeah!
Yeah! We did it! Fuck yeah.
Feels good. Feels good to be back. Guess who's back again?
Back again.
Cranked in.
Shady's back. Tell us around.
So yeah, this has been a we're coming back with
I've created a monster because nobody wants to see Marshall no more. They want Shady himself. Sorry, I was gonna do the whole song.
You should. So we gave you a giant sized version of Cranked and Ranked this episode because we fit in
king
8
size
albums. Yeah, 8 albums. And it's an over 2 hours for you guys but you know what, we made you wait a few weeks for us to come back, and I know that there are at least a few of you out there that rely on us being here every week, and that makes us feel good, makes us feel wanted and needed,
and we're back now.
We are. Do you have any
to let you
words?
Know we can really shake them down. Dun, 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 dun. Do you love me?
Closing thoughts.
I'm gonna get us claimed.
Yeah, it sounded too similar to the real vocal. We're gonna get sued by the Soul Glow people.
Oh shit! Of all the people, Soul Glow. That one just sounded like a Terrence and Phillip. Terrence, you farted! Oh man. That's how I learned how to do Rob Halford screams. Just doing a Terrence and Phillip impression. And I just kind of never hit puberty. This was fun.
Do you have any closing thoughts?
Peanut butter platypus, I guess.
Oh yes, peanut butter platypus to all of you out there. You can get coffee mugs with our faces on one side, and the other side says peanut butter platypus. If you look down below in the YouTube video, you can see. Go buy a coffee mug or a T-shirt or a hat, or I don't know. And also, if you do buy things and you wear them about, like post some pictures of you wearing some Old Head and Cranked and Ranked merch.
Spread the good word, do the Lord's work.
We'll repost you because we're famous and stuff, and you're gonna get a repost from some couple of famous blokes. Anyway, so yeah, first Cranked and Ranked of 2022. We've already got lined up. We know where we're going for the next couple months, I think.
Yeah, a month or two. Yeah.
So and we're not running. I mean, we have a list. It's fucking long. So it's like when we keep adding to it. So I don't think that we're in any danger of running out anytime soon. And even then, even with that list, it seems like at least once or twice a month, somebody will comment like, "What about doing this band?" And I'm just like, because I know eventually, because I feel like when we get to the point when we actually are doing like, I don't know, fucking what's that band? Why can't I think of the band anymore? Never mind.
Which
band? It's the band that I remember I went to a bar one time to go to a show, and I got there early and I was drinking at a bar, and somebody came up to me and said, "Are you in that band?" Oh, Amon Amarth. That's it.
Oh yeah.
And I was like, "Why do you think I'm in Amon Amarth?" I got a long hair and beard. I must be in Amon Amarth. I should have just faked an accent and been like, "Yes, that is my band." Anyway, so yeah, I feel like
I am a Viking. You just say.
I feel like if we I feel like if we ever get to the point where we're doing things like Amon Amarth, not that they're a bad band, but I feel like that's so far in the future that, like, you know, we'll be like, that's when I think we're nearing the end.
By
Anyway,
which point, all of the bands we've already covered will have like 7 other albums out. So,
that's true. We'll just start over from the beginning, except for, I mean, obviously we can't do Nirvana again, unfortunately, but you know, we can do a lot of bands again.
well, have you seen how fast like AI has taken hold of like synthesizing people's voices?
That's scary because, like,
It's
what if they make us say things that we didn't say and we get canceled?
hey Eddie, let's go back in time and stop Hitler from being killed. Like,
Actually, to be completely honest, if we got to the point where we were canceled, I'd be like, we're popular enough for people to care enough to cancel us. I'm like, we made it, and now it's over. But anyway, all right, cool. That wraps it up. I'm gonna get out of here because we've kept you here for a while, especially if you're still here. You're the ultimate peanut butter platypus, and we love you. But we're gonna let you go. We'll be back next week with another band ranking. It's gonna be fun. Thank you very much for continuing to support, and for those of you who are buying merch, thank you very much. And YouTube, you're great. Podcast world, you're also great. And we will see you all next time. And as usual, I'm gonna throw it over to Mr. Eddie Sparxx to take us out.
Just let your lady do just something later, dude. Something or something later, dude. Yeah.